March 24th, 1944. Stalag Luft III. Sagan, Nazi Germany. In the fourth year of World War II, deep in the forests of Lower Silesia, barbed wire cut through frozen ground. Watchtowers rose above pine trees. Searchlights swept slowly across sand-filled compounds, designed to expose any attempt at escape. This was Stalag Luft III, a German prisoner of war camp built to be escape-proof. It held some of the most dangerous prisoners the Third Reich could imagine. Not criminals, but Allied airmen, bomber pilots, navigators, men trained to think independently, men who had already survived combat at 30,000 feet. To German authorities, these men were not just prisoners, they were escape risks. The camp had been engineered for one purpose: to keep them inside. The barracks were raised above ground to prevent tunneling. The soil beneath was pale yellow sand that showed instantly against dark surface dirt. Microphones were buried deep underground to detect digging. Every detail said the same thing: no one was getting out. And yet, by the spring of 1944, more than 600 prisoners were quietly participating in the most ambitious escape plan of the war. They were not trying to free everyone. They were trying to bleed the German system dry. The plan had a name. Actually, it had three: Tom, Dick, Harry. 3 tunnels, each dug 30 feet underground, each more than 300 feet long, each supported by bed slats stolen from barracks bunks, each ventilated by handmade air pumps assembled from scrap metal and powdered milk tins. It was an operation that took over a year to build. Men worked in shifts. Lookouts watched for guards. Forged documents were produced in secret workshops. Civilian clothing was stitched together from Red Cross parcels. Soil was removed a handful at a time, hidden in socks, trousers, and improvised bags, then discreetly dispersed across the campgrounds. Every man involved knew the risks. If caught escaping, a POW could be shot. If caught organizing, he could be executed. Still, they continued, because escape was not just about freedom. It was about forcing Germany to divert manpower, railway police, Gestapo units, men who would otherwise be fighting at the front. It was war by another means. By March 1944, only one tunnel remained operational. Harry. The other 2 had been discovered and destroyed. Harry was the last chance. On the night of March 24th, the signal was given. At precisely 10:30 p.m., the first man entered the tunnel. Snow covered the ground. The temperature hovered near freezing. The forest beyond the wire was silent. Everything depended on timing. Each man would crawl the length of the tunnel, emerge beyond the wire, signal the next man, and disappear into the darkness. The plan was to send 220 men into occupied Europe. They never got that far. The tunnel exit had come up short, just inside the tree line instead of beyond it. Each man had to wait until a passing guard turned away before crawling out. The delay was fatal. At 12:55 a.m., the 77th man exited the tunnel. Moments later, a guard spotted movement. A flare went up. The escape was over. In total, 76 Allied POWs made it out of the camp. They ran in different directions. Some headed for railways, some for borders hundreds of miles away. Some carried forged papers, convincing enough to pass as civilians or foreign workers. But the reality of Nazi-occupied Europe was brutal. Within hours, alerts were issued across Germany. Rail stations were watched. Police checkpoints multiplied. One by one, the escapees were captured. Some were arrested while buying tickets. Others were betrayed by civilians. Several were caught within miles of the camp. Within days, 73 of the 76 had been recaptured. Only 3 men would ultimately reach safety. News of the escape reached Berlin quickly. And when Adolf Hitler was informed, he erupted. According to witnesses, Hitler initially ordered all recaptured escapees executed, not returned to camp, not punished, shot. His advisors pushed back, not out of mercy, but fear of Allied retaliation. The order was modified. Not all, but more than half. The final decision was chilling in its calculation. 50 men were to be killed. Quietly, individually. Their deaths would be reported as the result of trying to escape. The task was assigned to the Gestapo. Over the following days, the recaptured POWs were removed from camps in small groups. They were told they were being transferred. Some were driven into forests, some taken behind police stations, some walked along roadsides under guard. They were shot at close range. Bodies were cremated. Urns were returned to Stalag Luft III with falsified death certificates. For the prisoners left behind, the truth was unmistakable. This was no accident. This was murder. Only 3 men survived the escape. 2 Norwegians, Per Bergsland and Jens Müller, reached neutral Sweden by boat after travelling through Germany under false identities. A Dutch pilot, Bram van der Stok, crossed occupied Europe, reached Spain, and eventually returned to Britain. 73 men escaped the wire. 50 were executed. Only 3 reached freedom. After the war, the murders became one of the most documented Nazi war crimes. Gestapo officers were tracked down, tried, and executed. The story became famous, but it was also softened. Hollywood turned it into adventure. Motorcycles, heroism, triumph. The truth was darker. This was not a victory. It was a warning, a reminder of what the Nazi state was willing to do, even to uniformed prisoners of war, protected under international law. And yet, even in failure, the escape achieved something profound. Germany diverted tens of thousands of troops to the manhunt. Rail traffic was disrupted. Security tightened everywhere. For weeks, the German war machine was distracted, chasing ghosts who had already paid the ultimate price. They did not all come home, but they forced the enemy to fear them. This was the Great Escape. And this was only the beginning. March 25th, 1944. Germany awakens to an emergency. Before dawn, railway stations across the Reich receive coded alerts. Border posts tighten. Police units are pulled from routine duty. Gestapo officers begin coordinating with local authorities. 76 Allied prisoners have escaped. To the German state, this is not embarrassment. It is insubordination, a challenge to authority during total war. Orders move fast. Descriptions are circulated. Forged identity papers are expected. Foreign accents are to be reported immediately. Civilian clothing is no protection. The escapees are no longer prisoners. They are targets. For the men on the run, reality sets in within hours. The night that promised freedom turns into daylight exposure. Snow slows movement. Boots leave tracks. Civilian clothes do not hide military posture. Some men separate, others stay in pairs. A few attempt the most dangerous option of all, public transport. They know the risks. Trains mean speed. Trains also mean checks. Still, hundreds of miles lie between them and safety. Walking is not enough. One of the earliest captures happens at a railway station. A British officer attempts to buy a ticket using forged papers. The clerk hesitates. The accent is wrong. Police arrive. The officer does not resist. He expects to be returned to camp. He has no idea what has already been decided in Berlin. Another group heads south toward Czechoslovakia. They travel mostly at night. By day, they hide in barns, forests, abandoned buildings. Hunger sets in quickly. Red Cross parcels are gone. Money is limited. The cold is constant. At one farmhouse, a local civilian notices unfamiliar boots by the door. He alerts authorities. By evening, the escapees are surrounded. No gunfire, no chase, just handcuffs. Across Germany, the pattern repeats. Some are caught within hours. Others last days. A few reach cities and blend in briefly, until something gives them away. A wrong word. A wrong salute, a hesitation at a checkpoint. In Nazi Germany, suspicion is enough. By the end of the week, 73 men are back in custody. But this time, they are not returned to Stalag Luft III. They are scattered, isolated, separated from witnesses. The Gestapo takes control. This is no longer a military matter. Under the Geneva Convention, escaped POWs who are recaptured are to be punished, but not executed. Hitler's order violates international law. That is why it must be done quietly. No mass shooting, no public record. Each death must look incidental. Each man must disappear alone. The process is systematic. Small groups are taken from holding camps under the pretense of transfer. They are driven in unmarked vehicles. Sometimes the road turns into forest. Sometimes it stops behind a police station. The guards step back. A Gestapo officer steps forward. A pistol is drawn. One shot. Sometimes two. Official reports are written. Shot while attempting escape. Resisted arrest. Fell while fleeing. The paperwork is clean. The truth is buried with the bodies. Back at Stalag Luft III, rumors spread. Urns begin arriving. Ashes, names, dates that make no sense. Men recognize their friends. The guards say nothing. The prisoners understand everything. This is no accident. This is retaliation. Among the recaptured men, none are told they will be executed. There are no final speeches, no last letters. Some believe they are being moved to another camp. Some think they are headed back to Stalag Luft III. A few sense the truth, but by then it is too late. Meanwhile, 3 escapees remain free. Their paths are the most dangerous and the most extraordinary. Per Bergsland and Jens Müller, both Norwegian, make a bold choice. They head north. They travel as foreign laborers. They avoid large cities. They cross into Denmark. From there, with help from resistance contacts, they reach the coast. A small boat takes them across cold, dark water. Neutral Sweden lies ahead. When they step ashore, they are free. They are the first to survive. Bram van der Stok, a Dutch pilot, takes a longer route. He moves south, through Belgium, through France, across borders where capture means execution. He relies on underground networks, false papers, safe houses, guides who risk their lives for strangers. Eventually, he reaches Spain. From there, he returns to Britain. He is the third and final success. 76 escaped. Only 3 reached freedom. 50 will not survive the manhunt. By April 1944, the killings are complete. The Gestapo reports success. Hitler is satisfied. The matter is closed, at least on paper. But the story does not end there, because the Allies are watching. And after the war, every name will matter. The murders of the Great Escape prisoners will become one of the clearest war crimes of the conflict. Investigators will trace routes. Witnesses will testify. Gestapo officers will face trial. Some will be executed. Some will vanish. But the record will stand. This was not chaos. This was policy. The escape did not win freedom. It exposed something else. The truth of a system that answered courage with murder. And in doing so, it ensured the world would never forget what happened after the wire was crossed. April 1944, Stalag Luft III grows quiet. The escape is over. The manhunt has ended. The forests are silent again, but inside the camp, something has changed forever. Urns continue to arrive. Each one is marked with a name, a rank, a date. The German authorities insist on their story. Shot while attempting escape, again and again and again. The prisoners do not argue. They count. The count reaches 50. 50 men who escaped the wire. 50 men who were alive after recapture. 50 men who never returned. No accidents, no coincidences. The message is unmistakable. Escape will now be answered with death. Among the senior Allied officers in the camp, there is fury, but also restraint. Any open retaliation would cost lives. Instead, they do something else. They document everything. Names, dates, rumors of locations, descriptions of guards, vehicle markings. They commit details to memory. They understand that justice will not come now. But it will come later. Beyond the wire, the story begins to spread through resistance networks, through neutral countries, through intelligence channels. By mid-1944, London knows. Washington knows. The Allies understand that Germany has crossed a line. The murder of uniformed prisoners of war is not just illegal, it is criminal. And it will not be forgotten. Adolf Hitler never publicly acknowledges the killings. Official German records describe the deaths as unavoidable. The Gestapo officers involved are commended quietly. The matter is considered closed. But war does not end on paper, and memory does not fade on command. When the Third Reich collapses in 1945, investigators move fast. The murders of the Great Escape prisoners become a priority case, because unlike many wartime atrocities, this one leaves a trail. Orders were given, transfers were logged, crematoria kept records, witnesses survived. The crime was too large to erase completely. British military investigators begin tracking down those responsible. They start with camp commandants, then Gestapo officials, then drivers, then executioners. One by one, men are arrested. Some claim they were following orders. Some claim they were not present. Some claim nothing at all. The trials begin in 1947. They are methodical, cold, precise. Each death is examined individually. Each defendant is asked the same question. Why did you shoot an unarmed prisoner of war? For some, the answer is silence. For others, it is obedience. The court does not accept either. 14 Gestapo and police officials are convicted. Several are sentenced to death. Others receive long prison terms. Executions are carried out by hanging. The process is slow, deliberate, public. Justice, unlike the murders, is not hidden. For the families of the dead, the trials offer answers, but not closure. Many never recovered bodies. Some never saw graves. But they learn the truth. Their sons did not die running. They were murdered, and the world knows it. Meanwhile, the story of the escape takes a different path. Hollywood arrives. In 1963, a film titled The Great Escape is released. It is thrilling, entertaining, heroic. Motorcycles jump fences. Music swells. The ending feels triumphant, but the executions are softened. The anger is muted. The full horror is left largely off screen. For the survivors, the contrast is jarring. They remember the real ending. They remember the urns. They remember the silence. They remember the empty bunks. To them, the escape was never a victory. It was a sacrifice. And yet, even in tragedy, the escape had consequences. Germany diverted thousands of troops. Rail networks were disrupted. Security tightened everywhere. For weeks, Nazi resources were spent chasing men who had already paid the ultimate price. In a war measured in attrition, that mattered. More importantly, the escape shattered the illusion of control. It proved that even the most secure camp could be breached, that discipline could not crush ingenuity, that prisoners could still fight back without weapons. Today, Stalag Luft III is quiet. The watchtowers are gone. The wire is rusted. The forest has reclaimed the ground, but the tunnel entrances are marked. The names are preserved. The story remains. 76 men escaped. 73 were recaptured. 50 were executed. 3 reached freedom. This was not just an escape. It was a confrontation between courage and cruelty, between law and power, between memory and forgetting. And the world chose to remember. 1945 and beyond. When the war ends, the camps open. Survivors return home thinner, older, quieter. Many never speak publicly about what happened behind the wire, not because they forgot, but because they remembered too well. For decades, the Great Escape is remembered as daring, clever, almost romantic, a triumph of engineering, a triumph of courage. But for the men who lived through it, the meaning was more complex. They understood something the world often missed. Escape was never about getting away. It was about resistance. Under the rules of war, Allied airmen were expected to try to escape. Not recklessly, not suicidally, but persistently, because every escape attempt forced Germany to spend time, manpower, and resources away from the front lines. Each forged document consumed German ink and paper. Each railway alert tied up police units. Each manhunt diverted soldiers who could have been fighting elsewhere. Escape was strategy. Even when it failed, the planners of the Great Escape knew the odds. They knew most would be recaptured. They did not know 50 would be murdered. That outcome shocked even hardened prisoners. It crossed a line few believed Germany would openly cross. After the executions, escape activity across the German POW system slowed dramatically, not because prisoners lost courage, but because the cost had become clearer. Men weighed duty against survival. Some continued to plan. Others chose to wait. The war was turning. They sensed it. For historians, the Great Escape became a reference point. Not just for ingenuity, but for war crimes. It showed how quickly law collapses when power feels threatened. The victims were not civilians. They were uniformed officers, protected by international conventions, executed anyway. The post-war trials mattered because they set a precedent. Following orders was rejected. Personal responsibility was affirmed. The murders were classified not as excesses, but as deliberate policy. That mattered for every conflict that followed. For the families of the 50 men, memory took a quieter form. Names on plaques, photographs on mantles, stories told once, then never again. Many only learned full details years later. Some never learned everything, but none were forgotten. At Stalag Luft III today, there is no spectacle. No reenactments, just markers, stone, names, a reminder that courage does not always end in victory, but it still matters. The Great Escape did not shorten the war. It did not free hundreds. It did not break the camp system, but it exposed something fundamental, that even in captivity, even under threat of death, people will resist, not because they expect to win, but because refusing to resist would mean surrendering something far more important than freedom. 76 men chose to crawl into darkness. 50 never came back. 3 reached safety. All of them mattered. This is the real story of the Great Escape, not the one with applause, not the one with music, but the one written in names, dates, and consequences. A story of courage and the price it demanded.